And welcome to Wrestling and Everything, Coast to Coast, with your hosts, Buddy Sotelo, Esquire, and wrestling's premier photographer, Mike Lano, Dr. Mike Lano. So, we were talking a lot about what was both touching and just incredibly saddening to go to Tony Jones's funeral yesterday.
It's because you were there. We're going to have Dom Cesar Black in about a half hour. We just talked to him, and he was outside when he called you and I, or you called him, and he's going to be joining us at about.
We'll patch him in, in the middle of our conversation. But
you guys went to Tony's service, and I want to apologize to those. There was a fire down here at our storage unit, so like all of the tenants have to get stuff out. I was set to either drive or fly. I had Southwest. I had a res with my mileage. Either way, and I was not able to make it and felt horrible. But you guys were there, so I'm going to shut up and let you talk about, because for all I saw, I know that Tony Hernandez was there. I know Meltzer was there, you and Dominic Cesar Black. But let me pitch to you and tell me about the whole thing yesterday.
Well, thanks to 19th Avenue traffic. You're familiar with that, having lived in the Bay Area many years. I got there a little late. I was there like about 15 minutes late, unfortunately, and it was absolutely packed. It was a Duggar Memorial service.
That's where we went to. I think for Mike Lockwood, Crash Holly. I think.
I think so. It's a major funeral. A mortuary area, and they have a lot of services there, and I mean, there was probably the room held maybe 200 people, and there was not like a single seat available. I barely was able to fit in there. So Tony had a lot of admirers, a lot of fans, a lot of family, a lot of people that he touched, and that was very touching too, because I always think that when my funeral rolls around, there's going to be a number of people that are going to be like, well, that was about time. And a number of people are like, well, yeah, good.
Russ, why don't you, from start to finish, so you get there, what was happening on stage?
The pastor was giving, a recollection of his history and, the life that he had led. And wrestling was a major part of what they talked about, not just his collegiate, accomplishments.
Because again, SF State, he was one of the more decorated, talked about nationally wrestlers. Yes. When I introduced him to Flair and the Steiner brothers, they'd already heard of him. Some other ones like Scott Norton. So Tony Jones was well known. So the pastor, when you got there, was already incorporating wrestling into his talk.
Well, he was already, Well, I mean, you can't talk about Tony's life without mentioning, what wrestling meant as part of it. But they also mentioned his accomplishments in IT, working for a number of different law offices in San Francisco and in the Bay Area, some big firms. So, he also had that side of him too, that was kind of, very intellectual, and that his memory was absolutely impeccable, and that he, had the ability to recall exactly what happened in what match, that he was in, no matter, and what move wound up winning, or what, combo was the finish, or whatever. He had an encyclopedic and almost photographic knowledge of all the wrestling that he had done in his career. And so, that was one thing that people really, mentioned about him. And I got up and spoke in front of, everybody. It was a little bit nervous stuff. Well, first of all, because, I have my shoulder issue. So I wasn't able to. Christina Von Airy went and talked right before me. Christina Von Airy, she was at the funeral, and Modest was at the funeral, and Vinny Massaro was at the funeral, and Marcus Mack was at the funeral, and Paul Pontis and Jesus Cruz were all at the funeral. Oh, and Chicano Flame was at the funeral.
And
Also,
Dave Meltzer, did Dave Meltzer speak?
Dave Meltzer did not say anything, but I mostly talked to his girlfriend, who was really very
That's
nice.
his wife, unless they divorced.
His wife. Sorry, his wife. She was very sweet too. I mean, she didn't know much about Tony Jones, personally, because she's not like that involved in the business in the way that Meltzer was.
She's brunette, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and she was very nice, and we all went to lunch afterwards over at Cecilia's in the south, over just a little bit further south of where the funeral service was held. And then that was really like AP and Dominic obviously was there too. I forgot to mention that. Well, he'll tell you himself.
How about Tony's son, Anthony?
Oh yeah, I did get to talk to him and tell him what his father meant to all of us. But I got up and talked. And first of all, Christina gave just such a speech from the heart. The pastor said, even though you don't have anything prepared, just come up and say what you have to say. And I will say, while I was driving down on my way to the service, I was thinking myself about what I would say about him. If nobody said it about him, I was saying people need to know this about Tony Jones. And what she had said was that he was the kind of guy that was genuinely glad to see you. When you saw him, he was somebody that was always, when he said he was glad to see you, he really meant it. He really meant he was glad to see you. Like with it, he loved everybody that was in the business, even though the business has strange ass people in it. Tony got along with everybody. That is one thing, is that, whether you were a heel, whether you were a face, whether you were kind of like me, kind of on the periphery. I mean, I wasn't one of the boys, quote unquote, in the same way that, like, the guys, there's a certain greater bonding that wrestlers have with each other as opposed to, say, a manager or valet. There just is, I mean, managers get along with and we were friends for sure, but there's something more when you work in the ring directly with somebody, show after show after show. They're picking you up, body slamming you. You're picking them up, you're body slamming them. I understand that. That's a different kind of bond that you create with somebody. And the people that Tony had worked with really understood that Tony was the kind of guy that I remember Dory Funk was interviewed one time and they asked him, is wrestling fake? And he said, I can't make you believe that what I do in the ring is fake or real, but I can make you believe in me. And that is one thing everybody did, was they believed in Tony Jones. When he was in the ring, you believed what he was doing there was a huge amount of physical effort and skill.
He brought the amateur, as only a few guys can do. Another guy posed Tony with was Kurt Angle, who he obviously wanted to meet, and they got to talk about nitty gritty of AAU stuff. And I was on Jerry Briscoe and Bradshaw's show last Wednesday, in the midst of the same day discovering the fire. And it didn't take that long. You just do it like we're doing it now on Zoom. But Jerry said that he had to, so before that we were talking about amateur stuff, and he had to drag Jim Ross. He said, I thought Jim Ross willingly went to the amateur things with Jerry Briscoe, who was totally, on board and went to these things. I went to a lot of them with Danny Hodge, but certainly not Jerry Briscoe tops us all. But he had to drag Jim Ross there and a few other folks. I think he dragged Jimmy Cornette once to an big amateur meet, because particularly prior to the Olympics, as we've got coming up, these guys are major, and there's one female now that's huge. She's on all the morning talk shows, but Tony would have appreciated her because, Tony kept up with both the amateur and the pro sides. But So those folks that you mentioned, that was pretty much everybody you can remember from wrestling. There wasn't anybody from the BTW promotion that Tony worked at a few times as a favor.
No, not. I mean, not more than
Rex, Woody Farmer's son.
No, he was not there. No. I mean, different people.
Cambosi, some of the guys from the early first years when I was. Because I was there when APW.
Well, remember, some of these people I don't even know, because they were.
Cambosi, Jay Smooth. How about Boyce LeGrand?
No, Boyce was there. Boyce was there. So, Boyce was great, and I need to get him on the show. He is. He was. I talked to Boyce for a while, and he's in great shape, and he's still wrestling. He and Vinny are still doing shows. They're still wrestling.
I don't know why. Tony never told me why he just stopped. I think he was hoping the Beyond the Mat would have, and he was one of the stars of that, would have helped, get him hired in one of the big companies. And I think he finally, the way he told me was he had to make some money, and pro wrestling, for APW, you're not really making money.
No.
You're getting good experience, but he needed to, and he would put in the ancillary appearances. Like I think Marcus Mack had him on both Cal Palace shows in the Battle Royals, and that was good because I have photos of Tony locking up with Jungle Boy of AEW.
Sure. Well, he worked with a lot of greats, and Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe, and he was in worked shows with John Cena.
Yeah, he worked with Crash Holly.
Yeah.
Stuff. He was in dark stuff, like he was a
Matt Hyson.
Yeah, he was hard for Batista when Batista did that retirement. I think it was at the Cow Palace, and it was Raw Television. It was either Oakland or Cow Palace.
Well, I saw him at Arco Arena where he wrestled against Snitsky for 60 seconds, and I said the ring entrance took longer than the match itself. And that's one thing that I told the audience at his funeral, is that wrestling is because nobody had mentioned this, and I said wrestling is a really strange business, and it's part carnival, it's part rock and roll show, it's also an athletic event, and it's showbiz, and it brings people together of such weird backgrounds and such diverse walks of life, and yet we all become this weird family of people. It's highly dysfunctional a lot of the time, but you wind up really caring about the people that you work with on a weekly or monthly or whatever periodic basis that you get together. And it does take a lot of work, and it does take a lot of effort, and it takes everybody working together to make a great show happen. And Tony was one of those people that gave everything. Every time he went out there, whether it was in front of Angels Camp and 50 people, or whether it was in front of 1,000 people. But I also mentioned that I thought one of the great highlights of his career was not when he did WCW or the WWF or the WWE shows, or even Beyond the Mat. I thought the greatest accomplishment was when he headlined Cesar Auditorium and did the first pro wrestling show that had happened at Cesar in over 20 years. Do you remember that show that he did?
Vaguely. That was an APW show, right?
Yeah, an APW show, and he wrestled and he did his show in front of his coach, in front of his.
Yeah. I got the photos of that. I just remember Cesar. This lauded.
Great show. That was a great show.
Do you remember what were some of the other matches? So
I remember one of the great matches of that show was Donovan Morgan with his internet title facing Super Destroyer 2000, and Mark Smith and Donovan had their best match between each other. And Donovan got up to the top rope and drop kicked me off the top rope while I was on the ring apron. And I did just a great bump on that, which I know now I could never do if he gave me $1 million to do it. But
the interesting thing was that Mark Smith and Donovan at King of the Indies night 2, that's when all the shit went down.
Yeah, that was that. Yeah, that was that revenge match where, well, that one is a different story. But I wanted to just focus a little bit more about Tony Jones and just how happy he was to perform in front of his former coach.
Who did you work with on that show, though? Do you remember?
I'm sorry?
Who did Tony work with at the Cesar?
I think he was against Modest. I think that was him against Modest.
Matches at APW Garage, lots of stuff. I mean,
yeah, and it was just a fabulous match where they both went all out. And Modest was there at the funeral yesterday, and he told me a lot of really interesting things about Tony, that I didn't know, which was one of them. Since we're going to add Dom on here in a little bit, and he's going to tell his story. So I want to tell this one is that I had asked him, why did Tony Jones ever get interviewed for Noah? And they said that they liked his, because Donovan and Modest, got those pretty big contracts from Noah, and they also got Mark Smith involved in that too, and that really helped catapult him into the Ring of Honor stuff and all the stuff he did in Puerto Rico. Was once he became a sensation in Japan, that kind of unlocked his ability to, go to Noah and go to Puerto Rico, where he, wound up really spending the rest of his days. But Tony Jones wasn't. They wanted Tony Jones to be part of the whole makeup, and apparently, according to Modest, because Too Cold Scorpio was signed by Noah, and they wanted to make him a big star. They felt trying to push another black athlete at the time on the Japanese people would not go over.
Yeah, that was a problem I experienced. I saw firsthand when I was over there so many times from December 1990 through a lot of 1991, was a sort of quiet racism. And the word for foreigner is gaijin. So anybody outside of Japan that's brought in, whether you're from the UK or America or Canada or Mexico, you're a gaijin. But African Americans are to come over to tour, which is still kind of a rarity, are called cocoa jeans, like cocoa puffs, something dark, sort of a slangy, not quite derogatory term, but it's not the nicest term. The foreigners should all be called gaijin, whether you're black, white, purple, green. And there just weren't a lot. So it's almost like a tokenism thing. I recall that. And, Tony was a brain. He was, really.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was just a super intelligent, quality athlete, amateur and pro, to where, why wouldn't you want him to be part? But that was at that point.
Well, that was another thing that came up. That was another thing that came up, is that that was one of his things that kept him from being successful, is because he was so smart, they wanted him to act street tough in a lot of roles, and he couldn't summon his inner gangster.
Didn't Modest try dragging him? Wasn't he on a few of the tapings of Urban Championship Wrestling that they filmed down in LA? But he couldn't do that character because it's very articulate, Mensa type.
Exactly. He couldn't summon his inner gangster. He couldn't be a thug, basically.
Because he was battling the original West Side Players.
Yes.
Were Kwame Kamosi and Jay Smooth way before Boyce LeGrand joined it, or they had other
Robert Thompson, yeah.
And even for a while as Muscle, they had Tony, but he didn't cut promos. He was, but he was, came in a bit later. Let me ask though, I'm trying to think of some other folks. How about Sparky Ballard? Was he at the
No, not there. No. The ones that I've mentioned are pretty much the
other women.
Other than Christina Von Eerie, there were no other. I mean, there were, the girlfriends.
Cherry Bomb wasn't there?
No. I haven't seen Cherry Bomb.
Wait, Vinny's wife was a valet. Did she come?
No, she did not come. No, it was just Vinny by himself. But he had a show that he was doing later. I can't believe he and Boyce are still getting in the ring and getting bounced about. But Vinny
has that other gimmick. Doesn't he do a panda bear in a costume?
I haven't kept up with
He
Vic.
has alter ego. He's got the Gigolo, which he kind of took from Steve Rossano. How about Steve Rossano? Was Gigolo Steve Rossano original?
Not there, and Vic Grimes wasn't there, and
Frank Murdoch.
What?
Frank Murdoch, who was part of the.
No, Frank wasn't there. Yeah, no, Frank. It would have been nice. And
wait a minute, Vic Grimes, TJ wasn't there. He had so many matches with Tony.
I know he did. I know, but he was not there. I swear to you. I would have gone up to Vic if he was there. Look, if you're Vic Grimes, you can't quite hide in an audience. It's pretty obvious that but I think Vic is in very bad shape. I think from what I heard, he doesn't move around very easily, which is not surprising considering he's fallen off of 20
about
foot
the Jerry the Blackwell guy. What was his character? He was one of
the Peter Snott. Big Peter Snott.
Yeah, Larry Blackwell. Did he not show?
No, he was not there either.
You kidding?
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. It's
now.
Who can say what is going on in people's lives, and
exactly. It's tough. But one thing that was very nice about this was they gave people time to make plans. Like, someone like me, 380 miles away, I was able to reserve a plane flight, even though I couldn't use it when the fire happened. But, it was like 3 weeks or so from when he passed, as opposed to like when Buddy Rogers died, they had the service 3-4 days later.
Well, and unfortunately, when Mark Smith
you need time to make plans if you're coming from across the U.S.
Yeah, Mark made his. I think his family made his about a week after his death, and it was in the middle of California, and my twins had just been born, and I just couldn't take the time out to. It's one of my greatest regrets is to not be at Mark's funeral. It's one of the things in my life I really wish I'd somehow been able to attend, but couldn't.
Well, how about the family, starting with Tony Jr., Anthony? Did he speak about his dad?
No, his brother did, though. And his brother cracked us all up.
He had 2 kids.
Yeah. No. Tony's brother spoke.
Oh, Tony's brother. Oh, so
and he was great. He was great. And I also got a chance to speak to his grandfather, who was incredibly nice, and really very just forthcoming. And I mentioned, by the way, that to them that we had a podcast with Tony, which really sadly is one of his final podcasts. The one that we did with him early, in our show history.
I had to nag him for a while to do it, but he really enjoyed it. And he said, "Oh, you want me to come back on?" Now, Russ, are you able to keep looking out to see if when Dominic is on, you can call
I was going to call him. I was going to try to patch him in right now and see if he said call him in half an hour, and it's right at half an hour. But continue. Yeah.
While you're doing that, what did Meltzer tell you, or what was your conversation? Did Meltzer?
Well, that's interesting. I never really got around to talking to him, which is, I talked to his wife, but I didn't really talk to Dave. Everybody else was talking to him, and I thought he was going to join us for lunch, but he didn't join us for lunch. He left after the service. He just went home, I guess, or went to his next thing. So.
Well, he lives down in the San Jose area, so not really that far.
No. So I thought he would go to the lunch afterwards, but he didn't.
When I was a pallbearer at the Pampero Firpo's funeral in January 2020 before the pandemic hit.
Oh, hey, Dom, are you back home?
Yeah, give me 1 second to readjust.
Okay. We're welcoming back in
Cesar Black. Managing so great.
Dominic.
If Cesar spoke and get his thoughts on the service the whole day yesterday.
It was moving. It was awesome. I really the music got me. It was awesome, man. The amount of people there, the different people that were there, the different versions of people that were there, work friends, school friends, grown up friends. It was awesome.
Russ said that Tony's brother, was it Tony's brother? Spoke.
Cousins.
Son, sorry. Yeah, he was. He really gave great stories about all the toys that Tony had compiled up because he was a big collector of stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, that was actually hilarious.
It was.
You know, it was moving, man, and just hanging out afterwards and watching the videos of APW, and yeah, it was awesome, man. And his family's awesome. Like I met a lot of cool people, very very interesting folks, really nice people. I met the lady who actually did the picture for him, and I met her mother, who was just a doll. And
I don't know if you took either one of you guys took cell phone pictures, but Tony Hernandez sent me some. I'm going to send them to Russ to somehow maybe insert them into this, if you're able to. But it looked like there was some beautiful flowers and a big photo of Tony.
It was done very classy, very classy.
And the place was packed. Russ said, that was where Mike Lockwood, Crash Holly had his service. I was able to speak at that one. That was a number of years ago. Same place, but Cesar, tell us some of your thoughts. So, like, starting with the music, was it Tony's favorite music, songs and stuff?
I don't know who made the selections, but they made really good selections. Canaan's Land was a really beautiful song, and they did Swing Low. They did a medley, and it was three of his cousins, or three of his they were family, but I don't remember exactly how related. But young members of his family.
It was live singing. It wasn't
live singing.
Tape or recording.
Wow.
Yeah, live singing. They had three singers. They did. It was really beautiful, man.
It was. And then when they showed the retrospective of Tony with his daughter that he had lost.
Yeah.
I mean, even now I get a little choked up.
What did you guys? So Tony lost his daughter. Can you guys? I know it's emotional, but maybe tell us about his daughter. How old she was? What happened? Because I wasn't a lot of that.
I don't know. I'm not that versed in it. Yeah.
I believe it was cancer, and I believe she was like under 9 years old. I think she was like 8 or 9. And just the pictures of them together, and they played a song, "Dance with My Daughter."
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was just, and then they showed just a lot of pictures of Tony, a lot of him with Mike Modest, because the two of them and all the work they did.
They were a team. I was there. I don't know if I've talked to Cesar about this, but I was there because I'd known Roland since the 70s. Him and Eddie Moretti and I would be shooting ringside. Meltzer would be taking serious notes, and they would be trying to pick up girls, in the back while watching the show while standing up. They weren't usually in their seats, meaning Roland Alexander and Eddie Moretti. But I was there when Roland first started APW as a boot camp in around 95, 94, late 94. And I think Tony was from the second camp. But as soon as Tony started working the APW Gym War shows at basically the garage, I used to call it on commentary the APW Dojo or APW Arena.
Right.
But so the first incarnation of the West Side Playas, way before Icebox Robert Smith ever nagged me to take him to an APW show, was Kwame Kamosi and Jay Smooth. And later, when Tony turned heel, he was like muscle for them, feuding with Modest. But then he formed one of the more successful early tag teams for APW, him and Modest teaming together before Donovan Morgan and Modest would team together. But Tony and Modest were like, he was Modest's first tag partner as a heel when Modest had jet black hair. So,
right.
Cesar, I don't know when you started going to APW or became aware. Was it pre-2000?
No.
Okay, a little bit later.
I was living in Humboldt. I started the 2099. I went to Pro Wrestling Iron in 2000. Started in 99.
No, Pro Wrestling Iron wasn't around.
2000.
No, 2002.
What year was that? 2005.
Pro Wrestling
5. Sorry, I'm not really good with numbers, man.
That's all right. We appreciate you being here. I'm trying to think, because so many guys came in and out of Iron, but for Fog City, which was your promotion, which was so much fun, it moved around. But I think the primary home was Club DNA in south of Market, San Francisco, very famous area for those not in the know, and wonderful shows, great feeling. But for most in wrestling, with Luke Perry bringing his son up, young kid Jack, I think your promotion, if I'm not wrong, maybe went to SoCal Indies because they flew up, but Fox City Wrestling was kind of where Luke Perry got his, Jack Perry got his love of wrestling.
His dad was a wrestling fan way before. The reason why I knew that his son was involved in wrestling is because they would always show Luke on Raw shows. He'd always be front row. You'd always see Luke Perry, and Jack was little. He'd be with him on Raw, and then. So the story about Jack got to Fox City is we had New York Knockout Nikki Lon was on our roster. She was one of our head. Her and Morgan were our two head women in our women's division, and they were just really instrumental in like teaching me wrestling, and women's wrestling, and just I got lucky. I got a lot of good vets. I had a lot of good vets around me when I started Fox City, and those two being really instrumental. And we were looking to do an angle with Dylan Drake to get more sympathy on him because for some reason, with no matter what we were doing, we couldn't get him that nudge over. We got Sheik over, and how we got a couple other people over. So I had an idea of bringing the little brother. I'm like, we'll bring in a kid, and we'll have Rick Luxury push him down. Kid will be stoked he gets to take a bump, and it'll be quick, and then Dylan will spark to it to save his little brother. We get that kind of Von Erich pump going, right? Super simple. And then Nikki tuned in. She goes, well, hey, if you want to make it even better, I know a kid. And Jack Perry. And Jack Perry, right? So I'm sitting at home. It was like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon or whatever. And I get a call from a blog number, a private number. And I'm like, I'm taking this. I'm like, hello. And I get this like, hey, man, Knockout was saying you want to do something with Jack. What's that all about, man? I'm like, why am I talking to Dylan McKay from 90210 right now? What the hell's going on in my world? Like, right? Like, it hit me like a ton of bricks, right? And I'm like, Mr. Barry. He's like, no, just call me Luke, man. He's like, so what's up? I'm like, man, I got this thing called Fox City. He's like, oh, yeah, I know what that is. I'm like, fuck, do you know what that is? Like, I'm not even kidding. You can't make this shit up. He was that much of a fan. He knew what our shit was. And he's like, yeah, man. And I'm like, oh, man, so we're doing this show, and I got this thing. And I ran the whole thing down to him, and he was like, yeah, man, we'll be there. And I always joke because I'm still friends with Howie, the door guy, who used to be the door guy at DNA. He's the DJ in the East Coast now, and we always joke because he's like, I'm always like, I'm so glad you're a DJ because you were a terrible security guard. Because the day the show comes up, I walk up, I'm like, hey, man, have you seen Luke Perry? He's like, no. But there's a guy in a baseball cap upstairs waiting for you. I'm like, wait. So you haven't seen a movie star, but you let a weirdo in a baseball cap sit in the fucking dressing room and wait for me, bro? Like, what the hell, man? But it was Luke Perry and Jack, and the rest of this is.
Because I have pictures of that. I can't remember if I think they came up when because you had lots of TNA talent, Hernandez, and obviously Awesome Kong, Kia Stevens, we love, and Savio Vega, who I had to take. Tony
Jones was a member of the Cesar Black Experience. Like Tony Jones and Slim after Kevin got hurt. Tony Jones was a member of the Cesar Black Experience. Then Virgil.
Virgil?
Mm-hmm.
No, Virgil Flynn.
Virgil Flynn. Yeah, our late brother Virgil.
Our Virgil.
It's an incredible.
Junior
hit.
So they were both in the Cesar Black Experience.
That was something else that I brought up, yesterday, which is, for a small community, we've lost a lot of people. I mean, from Roland Alexander to, Mike Lockwood to Mark Smith and Aaron Kamini and.
So, I'll tell you a story about the Mike Lockwood situation because you weren't there, buddy. You were. I don't think you were there when all this was going on. He came to.
Yeah, no, I was there.
Were you there when he came after, right when he got fired?
Yeah. Yes, I was.
Were you there for the videotape?
I'm trying to remember. I might have been.
So it was a really strange day for me because it was my first time actually interacting on that level with like a WWE person, not Samoan, and also in a student capacity. And And so he comes, and he's super cool. I remember him just being really but he had nervous energy about him because he just gotten fired. He got released from WWE, and he just had. I remember I'm really, I wasn't even as a wrestling student. I was already older. I was already 26, 27, and I was already worldly to the to the world. I wasn't like just a babe in the woods. So he had this really odd energy to him, and the two things I remember the most about the day, besides the workout or whatever stuff, is I remember being like, you gotta, so I'm gonna give you guys, he was doing his lecture of, what to do in the business, and he kind of started stammering and kind of getting caught up in his emotions and kind of cross talking, and almost felt like he was talking to himself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I kind of understand what you're talking about.
And he starts talking so he's talking to us, but he's saying it to him, and he's saying things like, "Yeah, and you gotta introduce yourself as yourself, and then say they call me." And if you notice, when you meet me, I do that. I say, "My name is Dominic. They call me Cesar." That's literally from this experience. And he kept saying something about his cleaning your tights and just these things that I know he was trying to, I know he was telling us, but it seems like he had been told this. And that's maybe why he got released. I don't know what it was. Just, I could just see all the wheels turning. He was getting, as the day was going on, he's getting more flustered. And so at one point, he starts showing us a video. He's like, "Let me show you how we train in my place in Florida." Right? Sounds simple enough. He puts this tape in, and it's this kid. And he goes into this story about how the kid hadn't paid his money, his monthly dues, but he showed up for practice. And then when he showed up for practice, like pretended he had an ankle injury, basically just a bum student, which I understand. I've dealt with it now many times. But he puts this kid in the corner and gets this big black student and starts chopping this kid. And I mean, to the point where I forget if it was Donovan or if it was or Vito. It probably was Vito, because Vito was the more like level-headed at that time.
Vito Tomaselli, you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Who pulled the tape? He's like, "That's enough." And then 2 weeks later, he was passed. So it was just, and I've always put those two together with this. So I've always had like this fail-safe in my brain about this business, about being like, yo, there's etiquettes to it. And I talk to everybody, I talk to these young kids about them all the time. There's levels to this shit. It's something I always say. It's a gangster. It's a, I think sometimes, and Tony, this is the thing about Tony, like, and this goes to Tony. I wish we could have him on videotape just giving that Captain America speech from the end of Spider-Man's like, "Hey, so you want to be a wrestler? I'm Tony Jones, and this is what you should do." Steps, he could give that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'd be a thing. This has been approved by the Wrestling Sciences Academy. He had that about him. He was that textbook. And that's why I called him before he passed. I'm like, "I want to know what you would do if you had a school." That was my question, really, honestly. Because I see so many versions of so many schools and so many people doing so much shit, but I only know a few people I would trust to blueprint myself after. And I'm talking about, I train with the Samoans. And yeah, I would take some of their stuff, but a lot of their stuff I don't use. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the mental stuff the Roland did, I don't use. The Gabe stuff I don't use. I take parts of other stuff. And a lot of it was a lot of Tony, like just hanging out with him because he was a Cesar Black experience. Just hanging out with him because he was just that guy.
Cesar, who did you? I don't know if you spoke, but who was memorable from our community talking? Like, did Marcus Mack talk?
No, Christina spoke for us.
Really?
Christina Vaneri. She did a great job.
Yeah, Dom said she did a great job, but wow, I would have thought that Marcus might have. But maybe there was time I wasn't there, so I can't even open my mouth about that.
I think some people just felt too emotionally overwhelmed to say anything in front of everybody.
It took Vinny a minute, but he got up there and did say some stuff. Mike was eloquent as hell.
Yeah, Modesty would know, but Vinny Massaro went up and talked, right?
Yeah. Modest. When he went up there and spoke, and he like he said, he's like, "Yeah, I wish I could have been more like Tony because he had a lot of friends. He was my only best friend." That got me.
Wow, that's really, yeah. And I mean, they again, as I said in the video retrospective, they showed a lot of Tony and Mike, together, and that they, really.
They were always in the main events. I've got photos I should send too of Tony hooking up with Mike Lockwood as Leprechaun Aaron O'Grady before he Dom doesn't even know this, but very briefly, Mike Lockwood went to ECW and got a tryout, but he had sort of a big head, and they ended up not hiring him. And then he came back and kind of cut a promo where he was sort of trashing Heyman. It was like a shoot work. They opened the APW Gym Wars with that, and he was like upset, but then to us in the back, he kind of admitted he fucked up and was just not showing the proper respect, when he got.
Like I just told you the story. What did he tell? What did he say? You introduce yourself. Like that, I felt like, and hearing that story confirms it. He knew that wasn't just a one-time thing. That must have been that's how he must have been acting in the back.
Because he would have been there before Spike Dudley, which was crap. What was Spike's real name?
Matt Hyson.
Yeah, Matt Hyson was working under his own name. He was skinny as a rail, maybe not even 155 pounds the first year of APW. He was like in that first class, but a tremendous flyer, excellent wrestler, having matches with Super Diablo and some of our other.
The guy could take punishment like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I also had a story I didn't get to tell yesterday, but I did want to say it while I was on the show here, is that when I went to go see Beyond the Mat, I saw it in Sacramento with my brother, and we just decided we were going to go, just see it over at the theaters that was on Arden Way in Sacramento. My brother lived out there, and we're just like, hey, let's go see this thing because it's got APW in it. So we sit down in the theater, and guess who sits down right in front of us? Roland and the entire APW crew. They had been wrestling at a show just before that in Sacramento. They decided to stay the night over and then go to the theater and see Beyond the Mat because it was showing. And they just happened to pick that show at that time, and literally walking the row in front of us. They didn't know we were there.
Roland Bring. What wrestlers were there?
It had Mark Smith, Modest, Tony Jones, Robert Thompson. Yeah, I think Boyce may have been there. I think, but it was basically the whole crew of everyone that had been wrestling the night before because they wanted to see Beyond the Mat. So I got to see Roland's first impression of Beyond the Mat, of what he thought of Beyond the Mat while he saw it, because we were all watching it together at the for the first time, and then we went out to Denny's after that, or maybe we went to TGI Fridays because that was always Roland's favorite,
Wait a minute, did Robert Thompson, did he come to the thing yesterday?
No, he was not there.
He had so many matches.
I was surprised. That's probably the guy that was most surprising that he wasn't, to me. Wasn't there.
Again, like you said, you never know family obligations or what's going on. But Robert had tons of matches with Mike Modest and Tony, tons. Bomber Robert Thompson, and
they showed a lot of him in the video retrospective. The matches.
He got that work name from the original longtime trainer for the boot camp when APW started in the 90s, mid 90s, was Ricky Thompson, who was one of Roy Shire's longtime, very credible job enhancement talent guys. Super nice guy who's now in the Dallas area. I brought him to the show with Evan a couple of times, and Ricky Thompson was a big, huge name for Roy Shire in the 70s. He was constantly on TV, never got much of a push, but he broke in Tony Jones, amongst others in that second year class. Wow. Any other thoughts? We're kind of wrapping up time-wise, but can you guys think of anything else that stuck out or happened? Maybe other family members of Tony's that spoke, or like how did the service, it ended and you guys went to the restaurant. I don't know if anybody told stories at the restaurant that they couldn't tell at the church.
I'm gonna end with this thought, because I want to end on a positive. I think Tony would be stoked on this. I went to West Coast yesterday, West Coast Wrestling after.
Yes.
And I spent the whole day with Chicano Flame.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. Which, just my brother. He there's people, when I talk about Fluff City, I always talk about the we. and he's definitely part of the we. He was. If you look at the fabric of what we are.
Oh, I love Flame. He's fantastic.
You know,
he's fantastic.
He got me my luchas from Victor. He got me my first mask. He's been a part of everything. Every historical jump we've had. Flame, the guy who we started the No Name feud with. Flame, first guy. Him and Vince DeMarco had a hair versus mask match. At Fox City. We drove around Balmy Alley in a red convertible in full gear. Just like, you know, you name it, we did it. You know what I mean? Like he's the gorilla to my hyena. You know what I'm saying? Like that's legit how much fun we've had together. And I put him in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Like that's how deep we roll. So yeah, hanging out with him all day was awesome. But the reason why I'll wrap it up on the Tony thing is they gave him a 10 bell.
Good. Good. He deserves it.
Cade, who never even met Tony, you know, he wasn't around, but he gave him because he's such a well-spoken young man, my man James Kincaid, the voice of the West Coast Pro, gave him just one of our brothers, and it was really, you know, and having Vinny go out there and have an amazing match with Jeff Cobb.
Oh, did you guys say, did Gabe Ramirez or senior APW referee Max Marquez, did either of those guys come?
No,
man, it was just us. It was, you know, it was small. It was Vinny Massaro. It was Mike Modest. It was Tony. It was Tank. It was man here. It was me. It was Christina Vanieri and Mac. And
Rick Luxury?
And Jesus Cruz. Jesus Cruz.
And boys.
But that's, you know, that pretty much sums up the wrestling crowd. So it wasn't as, you know, as many people, but you know,
and it was Dave Meltzer.
And Dave Meltzer, yes.
And Dave Meltzer, and I got to actually pop Dave Meltzer's wife, because when he came up to us, his tie was crooked and it was kind of tucked underneath. I'm like, come on, man, you're at a formal event, man. You got this 2-star tie on with the 1-star knot in it, and his wife just goes, "Oh, I'm on 1-star tie, man. 1 star." Like, so
because Meltzer's getting like a little
rating.
Now the 5-star that Jim Cornette helped create or co-create 5-star ratings in the, I guess, early 80s with another, I think Howard Baum might have been the guy he created with, but now he's got 7-star out of 5-star matches, you know, usually when Ospreay or Okada or
my Meltzer ratings, I got Meltzer for 1.
Yeah, very good.
So I got 1 up on him forever.
Absolutely.
And it was right in front of his wife, so it's witness. So if I ever put it online, she can back it up.
So a 1-star tie with a 2-star knot? Was that what it was?
That's a 1-star tie with a 2-star knot, bro. Like straight up.
That's classic. Very quickly though, because West Coast Pro Wrestling, can you tell us a little about that card? That's kind of
I wanted you to promote that because I should be working out.
So Levi Shapiro, Fox City alumni, kid who I kicked out of one of our first 2 shows for drinking. For real, true story. He had a shot at the heavyweight title. Came up a little short against Kevin Blackwood. Amazing match. Like I said, Vinny Massaro and Jeff Cobb put on a match that Jeff Cobb and Vinny Massaro would put on. I called Vinny Massaro my general. I always used to bring him in to like help me get guys like in line. Like he was like literally locker room general.
Wait, who did Jeff Cobb wrestle?
Vinny.
Really? Oh, nice.
I
can't remember those guys working at APW because
No.
Jeff was a constant.
It was first timer. It was first timer, and it was beautiful.
Oh.
It was 2 big boys throwing bodies. It was beautiful.
Slapping meat.
The Marafuji match was Titus. Big Ugly Son Titus put on a hell of a match. Marafuji was fucking amazing, of course. The women's match. Maya World and Zara. Dude, okay, this match of the night, in my opinion, my humble opinion, very educated, humble opinion. They stole the freaking show. This girl came out full face mode, doing the Barbie thing, cutie little Texas girl. Other girl comes out a little thicker, kind of feels heelish, so the crowd jumps behind the cute chick immediately. Zara turned the crowd.
Wow.
A quarter way through the match, she started having him. By the halfway point of the match, she hit a fucking move. She went over. She had him like Gladiator in her hand. They were chanting, "Please come back," when she left the ring.
Wow, it's great.
It was fucking impressive.
Maybe
And
Marufuji's he's one of the biggest legends in Japan of modern day.
yeah, this match wasn't as good as the ladies' match, so.
Not as good as the ladies' match.
It wasn't like so.
The place packed.
Well, it was. I'm totally joking. It was. But I was just talking about the ladies' match, how dope that was.
It's good. The women.
Hold on. Let me just for you, just for you, Lena. Doc, you know I love you. Marufuji versus Titus. Since we're doing melters, I give it 5 ties.
It was the place packed. The place, I'm sure the place was sold out. Was it packed?
5 ties, 5 knots.
It was good, man. I love that venue. It was fucking fun. The staff was amazing.
Where was the venue? Was it San Jose? Where was it?
No, it was the Irish Center and then in the Sunset out by the zoo.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like I said, so that was a 5-tie match. The girls' match was a 5-tie match. Jeff Cobb 5 ties. The whole match it was a haberdashery last night. It was beautiful.
That's awesome. Now, Dom, tell everyone about the upcoming show that you want to have on July 14th.
Gonna have. Imagine is making its San Francisco debut. The Imaginarium is pulling in to San Francisco. Yeah, that's it. The Imaginarium is pulling in San Francisco. If you don't know what the Imaginarium is, go to Imagine Pro Wrestling, because I can't really explain what the Imaginarium is. It's where we live. It's our floating island. It's in parts unknown, and so wherever we pull up is home. So we never are on the road. We're always home field. And we come with the dope show. Pablo Esco is going to be on it. He's our heavyweight champion, aka the Savage. Our number 1 contender is going to be on it, aka the Accord. Both of those belts, I never got a chance to show you. I designed a couple of belts. Doc, I'll send you some pictures of the belts I've designed. But our company doesn't represent borders or countries, so there's no flags on our belts. They're themed for a reason. Everything I do, we tell stories in this business, and I think if we get back to some simple things like stripping away, like when I write, sometimes I strip away the text to make it more grounded in it's combat. And in combat, there are simple motivators: love, hate, success, money, conquest. That's what motivates gladiators. So you take away the flags. There's no American title. Our number 1 contendership is called the Accord. It's based on the rules of piracy. Like, been straight up, like the guy who holds that belt, he can he's the number 1 contender, and the only way to win that belt is to get in his face and say, "I want that belt." You can't jump him from behind. You can't attack him. He can't be submarined. That's just the rules. There are rules that you can't steal the belt. There's no walking away with it like it's mine.
What's the website where?
Yeah, when's it going to be and where?
Yes.
The show is going to be July 8th at a place called Spark Social downtown San Francisco, by where the Warriors play. We're going to be
Spark Social.
We're going to be in between where the Warriors play and the Giants play. Downtown San Francisco, center action. 2 p.m. bell time, 5 p.m. We're going to be done. So it's a 3-hour show. There's going to be bands. It's a michelada. Festival. So there's going to be drinks. It's all ages because there's going to be food because it's a food truck court. It's going to be a blast, man. We do these food truck courts. The last show we did was pre-COVID. This is our first show back, and they actually approached us to come back and do the show because last time we were there, we did 700 people. So I'd say, buy your tickets early.
What's the website overall for your, if you have a website? I know you have social media.
Instagram. We don't have time for a website right now.
Instagram is it for Imagine Pro Wrestling?
Yep.
Imagine Pro Wrestling.
Like gypsies, man. We live in a place called the Imaginarium. Come on.
Nice. That's great. And you said you might want to have me. You want to have me do a color on commentary on it.
Is that a yes? Is that a yes?
Yeah, that's a yes. You have it on my show. You have yes.
All right, there you go, man. That's awesome. That's just the way they went. Now you're in the Imaginarium, so
send me the details and a T-shirt, and
I'll send you a link. I'll send you a link to the Imaginarium. You can see how my world really works. It's an interesting thing. We do apply the rules of kayfabe. Like, honestly, for the way things are, for the way this business is, I've gotten lucky with the people that I'm working with right now because they actually understand the rules that we play by, and so all promos only go through us. So anything we do this promotional wise goes through production first. So we're not doing random, because the biggest problem I found in wrestling these days is You got two kids are gonna have a match. Like say I got Leno versus Jackman for my main, right? For my Splash Mania, whatever I'm gonna call my shit, fucking slap you in the face pro, whatever those three others are gonna use are, right? The problem is Leno's at his house. He gets up from his white wall and goes, Jackman, on Friday, I respect you, but I'm gonna beat you because I'm doing this for myself and my family, and that's the promo. That's just whack as fuck. It's just like. It's a fart sound, really. It's a fart. Do you even watch internet pro? I'm not even lying. When's the last time you watched the fucking? And I'm not being disrespectful to the kids who are doing them. Like at least they're doing promos, but fucking try. You know what I'm saying? We talked about this yesterday. WCCW type of thing, man. Like just try. You know, and like if you look at the Imagine stuff, we do shit like it looks like Adult Swim because that's where we see our product. We see ourselves like Adult Swim. We're having fun doing this, but we want people to enjoy it when they're watching it. So I go back to the old school, like Animal Chin and. Max Headroom. We invoke old school.
I was just thinking yesterday about Perfect Hair Forever.
Body Jackers.
So there you go. You know, and I'm an Aqua Teen Hunger Force, you know, fan from the very beginning. So
that's always been my, even with Fox City, that was my mindset. My mindset was like, I'm never gonna be Gagne. I'm never gonna be Bill Watts. I came from the Beach Street era, and I come from the hip hop era. I come from the Saturday morning cartoons era.
Right.
I'm never gonna be a polyester suit guy.
Right.
I'm not Marquez.
Right.
The biggest, the way you can think about the way me and Dave Marquez think about wrestling, he thinks about it like Disney. I think about it like Marvel. You know what I mean? I'm trying to go off the rails. I'm trying to create a multiverse. I'm trying to be on some other, mentals. But I also think about it like, I'm a 50-year-old wrestling fan. What do other 50-year-old wrestling fans want to see? I want to invoke things. I'm not just trying to have this is Dominic Jerry. I'm on the mic. Today with me on the side, I've got the champ right here. Hey, champ, what do you think? I think it's going to be a great show. I'm going to break all your bones. It's just boring as, So imagine pro wrestling. That's why, and imagine's a verb, by the way.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. All right, guys. It's great to see you again, and sorry that the last time that we have to get together is at a funeral. So I'm hoping the next time we get together, it's going to be a big party.
But the main thing is God bless Tony Jones. We love Tony Jones. He was taken from us far too young, leaves behind a great legacy. But we wish he were back here, and
we all miss him.
Yeah, we all miss Tony Jones. Just a wonderful, wonderful person, a superb athlete, great friend.
A great human being.
I'm going to leave you with the same thing I left this family with before we left me and Chicano Flame left the restaurant. You guys got to remember also, and just keep this in your hearts, that energy, the human body is 70% water, and we just channel electricity. And energy can't be destroyed or created. It just can be transmitted and transmuted. So I just believe that like Tony was his battery. His human battery died, but that energy can't be destroyed. He redistributed to all of us, and we need to carry it in our hearts.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for joining us. We'll be in touch real soon, and we'll have you on before the next show, before the July show.
Right on, man. I will get a hold of you this week and let you know the specs and all the whatnot. I'm gonna add you to the Imaginarium on Instagram. So that's
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun.
That's a real thing.
All right, guys. God bless.
All right, guys.
Doc Leno.
Bye-bye.
Love you guys.